Welcome to CWC Labs. I'm Mike Adams, and today we're bringing you the test results of glyphosate removal capabilities of all of these water filters that you see behind me. Now, in order to do this test, we've made up a solution here of 2 parts per million glyphosate. We went out and bought this off-the-shelf glyphosate here and then diluted it into a larger volume of water at 2 parts per million. Then we ran this 2 parts per million through every water filter that you see here. We tested sports bottles water filters. We tested water pitchers like these here, the kind of tabletop, countertop filters, and then the big gravity filters on the other side of the table here, kind of the high-end ones. And for each filter, we then sampled the resulting water and ran it through our triple quad mass spec instrument that does ion fragmentation, quantitation of glyphosate transitions. I don't mean to get too nerdy with you, but it's a very good method for testing glyphosate. And then we were able to quantitate that and get the actual numbers in order to calculate the percentage effectiveness of removal of glyphosate for each of these water filters. I want you to know up front that CWC Labs, we're the only people doing this, and we haven't been paid by any of these water filter companies. In fact, I went out and purchased all these water filters. They didn't even give us any free except, let's see, the Aqua Pail on that end was given to us as a sample. So that's the only water filter I can think of that we got for free in order to do the test. We went out and bought almost all these filters. And so this is an independent science test. This is the kind of test that the EPA should be doing, but they're not doing, or at least they're not sharing the results publicly like we are. We're the only people in the world doing this, and we do it in the public interest. We do it for you so that you can make informed decisions about how effective water filters are. Now, in my teaser video that I released a few days ago, I predicted that these water filters would not remove much glyphosate. I'm happy to report that I was wrong about that. They're actually taking out a lot more glyphosate than I anticipated. Some filters performed poorly at about 20% reduction, but other filters actually removed 100%. In fact, on the table behind me here, there are 3 filters we found that remove 100% of the glyphosate in our tests. That's a lot more than I thought. I mean, I'm really astonished. So it's good news. It's also good science. This is why running the science here is important, because my opinions about these water filters are irrelevant. So are your opinions. So is the marketing text from these manufacturers. What they claim on their website doesn't really matter. What matters is what the instrument tells us, because that's the scientific truth about how much glyphosate these water filters remove. So let's go through them one by one and see what the results are, see how effective they really are. And by the way, I thank you for your support in all of this. You can continue to support our efforts by shopping for glyphosate-tested products at healthrangerstore.com, the online source for clean foods, clean supplements, and green living products for your home that have all been laboratory tested. That's what we use this lab for, primarily. We also use it to run these experiments to bring you this kind of information. All right, these are the bottle water filter test results. Now, this cluster that you see up here, those 3, those are all the non-filtered water. That's the 2 ppm glyphosate. I ran it 3 times just to make sure we're getting consistent results, and we are. But what's really interesting is these are the water bottles showing the resulting glyphosate concentrations at different levels below the original 2 ppm. Now, none of them are down here, which would be a really strong result. You know, strong filtration would be here. Weak filtration is up here. So these water bottles, they are doing some filtration, different levels of filtration, although none of them are very effective. And none of them are down here with close to 100% filtration. But they're working somewhat. They're doing some removal, which is better than I expected. Now we're moving on to the water pitchers. And this red line is the original 2 ppm. And each one of these other peaks shows the resulting level of glyphosate after going through a water pitcher. Now this is fascinating to me because it shows down here there are 2 water pitchers that are very, very effective. There's actually one that is not even shown here, which I'll explain later. But some of the water pitchers perform poorly because they don't remove much glyphosate, as you can see from these peaks here. And these perform sort of mid-range, but these are performing extremely well. Overall, these are performing much better than the sports bottles, which is kind of expected because it's a larger filter media in the water pitchers compared to the water bottles. So right away we can tell that the pitchers are more effective than the bottles as a general trend. Finally, here are the results for the large filters. And by the way, I'm going to walk you through all these shortly to show you exactly which filters did what. But this is the original 2 ppm glyphosate. And then these are the results of the large filters, the gravity filters, showing that even the worst one performed, not bad. It's kind of mid-range, but several of them performed very well. And there are 2 down here that performed extraordinarily well. You can't even really see them unless I zoom in. See, there's a zoom in, and you see there a couple of lines right down there, baseline. But this shows you something very interesting, that the gravity filters perform better than the pitcher filters, and the pitcher filters perform better than the bottle filters. All right, next we're going to take a look at each individual filter and find out exactly how much glyphosate was removed according to the mass spec analysis. For each filter here, I've got it labeled for the percentage of effectiveness. The higher the number, the more glyphosate it removed, the better it functioned. Starting with the water bottles, we have arranged the bottles from the poorest performing in our tests to the best performing. And here on the poorest performing side, we have sports bottle C, which is a Seychelles bottle that comes in at 21.6% removal of glyphosate, which is really more than I expected, but it's not that much. The next Seychelles water filter bottle, which has a different size filter in it, removes 30.8% in our tests. Then there's this kind of military-looking bottle that removes 33.7%. Most likely these are the same filters. We just have some variation, just some natural variation in the efficacy of small production lot differences, for example. The next water bottle is pH Life, which removed 37.9% of glyphosate in our tests. Again, it's a lot more than I expected. pH Life, there's the logo. This is really mostly a pH bottle for alkaline water, not so much a filter, but it still removed almost 38%. And finally, the better performing bottle was a Seychelles sports bottle that removed 52.9%. Now you may notice that most of these bottles are from Seychelles. That's just what I had on hand. Maybe in the future we'll do a more comprehensive test with other bottles, but you can see the range here. The best bottle removes about half of the glyphosate. The worst bottle removes less than a quarter. This is a far cry from many of the claims of water filter companies that say they remove up to 99% or sometimes more of pesticides and herbicides. And this is actually a little better than I expected, but it's not that great. So if you're trying to remove glyphosate from your water, the lesson is probably don't rely on these small sports bottle water filters. They're really not that effective for glyphosate removal. Now we're going to look at the water pitchers. All these different brands here, Culligan, Pure, Zero Water, Seychelles, and so on. These also removed more glyphosate than I expected, and as a group they performed much better than the water bottles. But here's the poorest performing one, which is the Culligan, at 26.8% removal, which is actually very similar to the low-end water bottle over there that only removed 21% or so. Next we have the Mavia water pitcher, and this one removed 27.9%. Again, not very impressive at all. It's not something that I would rely on to remove glyphosate. Then there's a Seychelles filter here. Now we have 2 Seychelles. This is the one that has the smaller filters. I don't know what they call this. I guess PH2O Pure is maybe one of their model names, but this one removed 39.1%. Now we're starting to get into the mid-range. And then next we have the Brita water filter, which removed 50.4% in our tests. So now we're getting to about half of the glyphosate removed. Continuing with the water pitchers, the Pure water pitcher removed 61.4%. Definitely starting to get good. Then we have another Seychelles water filter, this time with a much larger filter element in it and a different brand name, a different model name. I don't know what they call this one, but it's a very large filter media that it has, and this one removed 96.9%, which I think is very impressive. And it's very interesting that a different Seychelles water filter removed 39.1%. So the filter media really matters. They're doing something obviously a lot more effective in this unit. So if you buy Seychelles, be careful what you're buying. Make sure you're getting the one that's more effective. I wish I had the model number here, but it's not printed on the product, so we don't really know. Finally, Zero Water. Now, Zero Water is a brand that claims to remove everything. And at first you might think that sounds absurd. How could it remove everything? It even comes with its own TDS sensor to let you know when you need to replace the filter. So imagine my surprise when we ran it with glyphosate and it removed 100%. I guess Zero Water really is Zero Water. I'm really amazed. I'm totally impressed. I did not think that there would be a water pitcher that could remove 100% of the glyphosate. And I ran this multiple times because I thought surely there must be an error, because there wasn't even a trace of glyphosate, not even a part per trillion. But look too, the filter is very large, and they obviously have some unique chemistry in this filter. And I would say, based on this test, that Zero Water is by far the best tabletop water pitcher filter. The least effective filter is this odd no-name filter that we bought on Amazon. It's kind of a knockoff of the Zen. This is called the Zen filter, and it's got all these interesting stones and things in the element. And the Zen did better, but this kind of Zen knockoff here, which has a ceramic up above and then some alkalizing minerals here, it performed at 58.6%, which is the lowest performance of the gravity filters. Now, notice that the worst performing gravity filter here actually performed better than the best performing sports bottle filter, which was 52.9%. Moving on here, the Dalton filter removed 86.5% of the glyphosate. That's really, again, all of these are surprising to me. The Crystal Drop removed 87%. So these are almost identical. Perhaps they use the same filters. They actually look almost the same. Maybe they're just OEM water filters. The Zen filter, which again has this ceramic element up here, and then it's got a kind of a multi-element, I don't know, stones and such, whatever's in there. It removed 91.4% of the glyphosate. A lot more than I expected. And then finally we have the last two water filters here, the Big Berkey, and this one called Aquapale by a company called Be Ready, which I think is out of Hawaii. Now, one thing to notice on the Big Berkey, that it's got the ceramic elements here up top, but we also ran it with these arsenic fluoride filters. And as I mentioned in the teaser video, I suspected that this filter might be able to remove 100% of the glyphosate. And in fact, I was correct. The Big Berkey removes 100%. But what really surprised me was that the Aquapale here also removes 100%, which I absolutely did not expect. It's basically just this one filter element right here. And honestly, it doesn't look that robust, but you know what? What matters here is the chemistry, not the aesthetics of it. This filter removed 100% of the glyphosate. I was stunned and pleasantly surprised. So from least effective to most effective, these two having 100% effectiveness here, the Big Berkey and the Aquapale. And then on this side, the Zero Water has the most effectiveness by far with 100% glyphosate removal. And remember that these tests were conducted via mass spec instrumentation. We created this 2 parts per million glyphosate solution. We actually created a lot more than this. And then we poured it through all these filters the same solution, and then we measured the resulting liquid to see how much glyphosate was remaining. And that's how these numbers were then calculated off the mass spec peaks that I showed you earlier. And bottom line, if you want super clean water, you need to go either with the Aquapale or the Big Berkey or the Zero Water. And there might be other water filters out there. I think Alexa Pure is out there. I'd love to test one of those. That might be also 100% effective. I'm not sure. But I'd like to expand this in future tests. With your support, share this video, tell others about this. CWC Labs, this is what we do. We conduct science and share it with the public, but I'd like to expand this. I'm going to have to buy a lot more filters and run those tests on those filters and try to bring you more results. Also, we can expand this to other chemicals other than just glyphosate. We can look at other pesticides and herbicides and publish those results as well. All right, bottom line, I am pleasantly surprised at the results that we found. These filters performed far better than I anticipated they would, which just goes to tell you something very important about science. It's not up to our opinions or emotions or personal views. These numbers that you see here are based on what the instrument tells us. This is science telling us the truth, regardless of our personal opinions. And that's why we use mass spec instrumentation to get these results. It's the same thing I do for my store, healthrangerstore.com. We test everything we sell using multiple mass spec instruments to make sure that we can bring you the cleanest food in the world. We do glyphosate tests and pesticide tests and heavy metals tests and much more. So I'm using the same science that I use here to tell you the truth about these water filters. Now, in terms of rules of thumb for what we found here, it's not so surprising that the bottle water filters performed the poorest. The pitcher filters here, the countertop filters, did quite a bit better, and one of them, Zero Water here, did perfectly in terms of glyphosate removal, which was a surprising result. But the gravity filters, like the Aquapale and the Big Berkey, did the best. It just goes to show you that if you want to filter water effectively, you probably need larger filters. Surface area matters. Size really does matter when it comes to water filters. The bigger the filter, the better job it does overall. There's also different chemistries in the filters, and different chemistries work better for different pesticides, herbicides, or what we call analytes, chemical compounds. So the science behind each filter is also important to recognize. But what we've seen here in these tests is that some filters really don't do a good job at all. Other filters do a perfect job when it comes to glyphosate. What this means is that consumers like you should shop carefully. If you're going to spend money on a water filter, you expect to protect your health. You expect to have clean water. But you may not be getting clean water unless you check the results, unless someone has really done the science. And what's fascinating to me is that the EPA has never done this study. With a budget of, billions of dollars, they've never done this. The FDA has never done this. The government is practically useless on this point. Why does it come down to an individual lab like us, CWC Labs, to do this research and share it with you publicly? Well, the answer is because it's not politically correct to do this. It's individuals who are passionate about this. I'm passionate about clean living, clean water, and clean food. We are doing the job that the government should do, and we're doing it without spending a dime of your taxpayer money. But we did it with your support, you see. You support us at healthrangerstore.com with our clean foods, clean products, superfoods, nutritional supplements, home living products for green living at home. You support us, and we invest that money in the scientific instruments and this laboratory to be able to bring you these results that the government refuses to do. We are doing the job that they won't do, and I thank you for your support. The only place you can get this real news is naturalnews.com or one of the sites we publish, such as glyphosate.news or perhaps cwclabs.com. So I thank you for your support. This is awesome what we found here, all these results, and there's much more to come. And final thought, if you're wondering what this shirt says, it says, I ate some pie, and it was delicious. 2 to the power 3 is 8, symbols for some and pi, and this is I for imaginary number. And the reason I'm wearing this microphone is because the audio is really atrocious in this laboratory with all the vacuum pumps running, unless I have a mic right next to my face here. So that's what that's all about. It's not decoration. It's not a fashion statement, as you can tell. But thank you for watching. Mike Adams here for CWC Labs and naturalnews.com. We have much more glyphosate science ahead, more videos to come out, 15 experiments on the whiteboard over there. We're going to do a lot more and bring it to you for free. This is what we do. Thank you for your support. Almost no one tests their products for glyphosate, but we do at the Health Ranger store. We test for glyphosate for every incoming production lot and finished production batch of products, and we put those symbols right on our website so you know it's been glyphosate tested using an ISO accredited in-house laboratory, triple quad mass spec instrumentation, sensitive down below 1 part per billion. We test and confirm that everything is safe and pure and authentic so that you can trust our products to protect your health. HealthRangerStore.com, over 700 products for healthy living and healthy home. Lab tested, heavy metals, glyphosate, microbiology, and much more. Check it all out at HealthRangerStore.com.